Does anybody remember these? I mean, anybody? Okay, everybody, I thought it'd be a little bit fun today to go down memory lane and look at the 10 television shows that for some reason, whenever I bring them up to people, nobody seems to remember. Now, I know some of you are going to say, how do you remember that, you idiot? And I get it. I'm just saying that the ones that whenever they come up in conversations with most people that I'm talking to, they look at me and say, I don't remember that at all. Go figure. It is what it is. So without any further ado, let's get rolling. Okay, first off, we're going back to 1977/78. They did less than 20 episodes. It didn't last that long, but we are talking about The Man from Atlantis. Does anybody remember that? You remember the dude with the webbed hands and shit, and he could swim through the water, and he was doing all these special missions, and it was played by Patrick Duffy, long before his fame on Dallas, da-da-da-da-da-da-da, and all that shit. He was the Man from Atlantis. For some reason, when I bring this show up to anybody, they look at me like, doesn't ring a bell. Everybody knows Patrick Duffy. Nobody remembers The Man from Atlantis. Is what it is. I can't figure it out. Go figure. Next up is a show that was actually kind of like a kid's show back in the day that I remember that when I bring it up to people, nobody seems to know what I'm talking about. Everybody remembers Sesame Street. Everybody, even to a degree, remembers The Electric Company. And even Zoom. But for some reason, when you say 3, 2, 1, contact, people look at you like you're from another planet. And I'm like, I don't know why. Ran for a while. I seen it when it was like the first year or so because it came out in 1980 and it was just floating around. But it was really a show about education. They taught you things, you know, how rockets worked and all this other kind of stuff. And beyond cool, it had 2 stars from the Warriors in it. Had Ginny Ortiz and, oh God, the guy that played Rembrandt, Ocelino, something or whatever. He was in it too. The Bloodhound Gang. Remember? They were detectives. Anybody. Bring up 3, 2, 1, contact. Nobody seems to remember it. I just don't know why. All right, from 85 to 87, there was a little show. Only ran 24 episodes. We're talking about Stingray. Come on. You remember Stingray. He drove a badass Corvette Stingray. And his name was Ray. Played by the one and only Nick Mancuso. Kind of like one of those A-Team type shows, you know? People in trouble, he'd show up, didn't want money, would just ask you for a favor later, that kind of a shit. It was cool, it was short run, but it was around. And whenever you bring it up, everybody looks at you like, nope, don't get it. Stingray was a fun little show. You can find it out there in streaming land, here, there, whatever. It was alright, give it a look, not too bad, worth a check out. Now this one bogs my brain down because I don't understand it. It was like a hit. Was on for a while. Everybody remembered it. That's Incredible. You remember That's Incredible? Fran Tarkenton, Kathy Lee Crosby. You know what I'm talking about? And they would have all those great stories that they required no proof of at all. You know what I mean? My favorite one was about the haunted Toys R Us toy store. Remember that shit? And they were just like, yeah, believe it. It was kind of like In Search of like that. No proof. Let's just roll with it. That kind of thing. And sometimes they had on people that could just do weird stunts at attractions or whatever it was. It was just cool. Yet, I don't see that many people remember it. Maybe if you're in my age bracket, right there, some of those guys will be like, all right. But anybody else? Nope. Never heard of it. Never in a rerun. Most people don't know. I don't understand. Okay, another show. All right, it wasn't good. That's why nobody remembers it. Let's be honest about it. But it did have Lee Van Cleef. We're talking about The Master. You remember the sci-fi, well, I shouldn't say sci-fi, even though it was so ridiculous. It should have been, we're talking about the martial arts show, The Master, with the one and only Lee Van Cleef, which was truly sad because Lee Van Cleef was never really known for that kind of stuff. And by the time he was in something like this, he was old, he had bad legs, he couldn't really do anything. The show was cornier than shit. So when people don't remember it, I don't really slag them that much for not remembering it. But it would be cool if more people did. All right. From 84 to 86. 24 episodes, I think it was. We're talking about Riptide. Come on, everybody remembers Riptide, for Christ's sakes. Actually, no. It was 58 episodes. 58 episodes. It was around for a while. You had, come on, the one and only Tom Bray, who is in that wonderful little show that we all know and love, Prince of Darkness by John Carpenter. Well, it was a movie by John Carpenter. You get what I'm saying. I'm rolling. Just let me be. Anyway, you bring it up to a lot of people, they don't seem to remember. You know, you say, hey man, remember these two guys, they're like detectives, and they had their nerd friend with a robot, and everybody's like, fucking, I'm not really getting it. And then you say, remember the big pink helicopter with the face on it? And some people go, ah, yeah, that thing. Like that. If it wasn't for the helicopter, I swear to God, I don't think 90% of the people that remember it would remember it at all. Don't get it. It was fun. It was kind of carefree, and it was a cool little, you know, detective buddy show, which is what all you had in the 80s. All right, around 87, 88, you had a show. It only ran for 31 episodes. And it could have been a hit, might have been a hit, but it was just executed kind of badly. We're talking about Houston Knights. You remember that, or probably don't, with the double Michaels. It had Michael Beck, and it had Michael Pare. You know what I'm talking about. Eddie from Eddie and the Cruisers, and Tom Cody from Streets of Fire, and of course, Swan from the one and only The Warriors. These guys were on a roll in the early 80s. You know what I'm talking about? Pare had obviously the movies I mentioned before, and the Philadelphia Experiment. Michael Beck obviously had the movie I named before, and stuff like, you know, the Man Called Horse fucking movies or whatever they were. So they were around. Maybe not at the level that they once were, and that's why they were teamed up for a TV show together, but it had the recipes for what would have worked. But some bad storytelling, some shoddy directing, and, I mean, the acting wasn't the great, but that doesn't really make a difference. Let's face it, there's a lot of people in Hollywood that can have big careers that just have a vibe and a look. Hi, Keanu. And that gets them through. And if there was ever two guys that signify that, it's kind of Pare and Beck. They had a vibe and a look. And that's really all you needed. But for some reason, it just didn't catch on. The stories were nonsensical. Directing wasn't great. It came, it went, but it's out there. 44 episodes from 77 to 79. We're looking back at a little comedy that I swear nobody remembers, and it drives me crazy. We are talking about Carter Country. Handle it, Roy. Handle it, handle it. Come on, it was a cute little comedy about a sheriff's station way back in the late 70s down south, and you had this new cop. He was a black guy, and he was moving the neighborhood with everybody else, and it was like a really fun little ride. It had Victor French in it. It was cool. It was funny, and it is completely forgotten. You cannot even find film of this thing anywhere, unless you're like on YouTube and it looks like shit. It's just almost non-existent. It came, it went, and I think it got lost in some kind of, you know, post-hell where you just don't see it floating around. So, one of those things, look out for it. Not a bad little show, Carter Country. 1977, 35 episodes. People might not remember it, but it was around. Fish! You remember Fish. I hope you remember Fish. It was a spin-off from Barney Miller. You know, Abe Vigoda played Fish, the detective, and they thought, this guy's so popular, let's give him his own TV show. And they did. And it was about him and his wife, you know, fostering all these troubled kids, and they had a house with like fucking 15 kids in it, and they all lived there. It had a very young Todd Bridges, and it even had that kid from Bugsy Malone. Remember, like Fat Sam? Remember? He was in it. So, it was cool just for that, being a young guy at the time when it popped up. But, of course, it was Abe Vigoda, and he was Fish. Nobody seems to remember it. Nobody seems to talk about it. I never see it in reruns, but here's what it is. And finally, 1995. Ooh, we are talking about Space Above and Beyond. That's right, everybody. It only ran for 23 episodes. I don't understand how. It was a great show. You had Kristen Cloak and the rest of the cast, and they were awesome. It was set, you know, kind of in the future-ish. You know what I'm talking about? Mankind had a war with AI. Well, we'll just leave that one go for right now. And then an alien species bumps into Earth colonies, and we have this big war. Come on. Chicky von Richthofen, the great alien fighter pilot that would go out there, and he had "Abandon All Hope" written on the side of his ship. The shit was great. It was like the best sci-fi show, in my opinion, before Battlestar Galactica or the reboot came, which obviously was better. But this had a lot of the elements of that. It was brought to you by the same team that gave you The X-Files and Millennium and so many other things. So this thing had hit written all over it, and it was pretty popular, but it couldn't justify the cost. So they shit-canned it. Waste, waste, waste. Never gave it a proper send-off, never gave it a conclusion. Is what it is, was what it was. If you get out there, check out Space Above and Beyond. You can find it on DVD and shit. I own it, the whole thing. It was a good little show. Should have had more. Should have went places. All right, everybody, that is it. My 10 little shows that, for me, are the most forgotten shows I bring up and nobody remembers. Put some comments down below about stuff that you used to watch or you used to see that for some reason people just don't remember at all. I'm sure there's other ones. I'm sure there's like, some romantic comedy shows or some other stuff like that, the stuff that I didn't really watch. So there's probably a lot more of these things that get lost in translation. But I'm just saying, for me, the ones when I bring them up, that people look at me and say, nope, those are them. Anyway, be good, take care, stay out of trouble, be kind to a stranger, be there for a friend, and most of all, never, and I mean never, take any bullshit from anybody. See you soon.